Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program. My guest probably does not know this, and that's fine, but now everybody else will. I'm actually doing this program in the midst of having contracted that wonderful entertainment value that keeps on giving, COVID. But I'm on the mend, ladies and gentlemen. I am on the mend, and I am doing well. But by the time this program hits the airwaves and or the podcasts, I'll be perfectly healthy and on the other side of all of this good stuff, because we are talking about, with our special guest here on the program, an event that is coming up, and it will be at, if I'm not mistaken, the Unity Shop, not the Unity Shop, the church, Unity Church, I believe. And my guest today is Priscilla Keresey. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a privilege.
Well, it's an extraordinary event that's coming up, and it's going to be of spiritual messages with you as a psychic medium. There'll be signs, symbols, and all kinds of other SDEs, and an all-day workshop with emotional body coach, and that is Michelle, and I don't have her pronunciation of her last name. It looks French to me.
Yes, it's liqueur.
Liqueur. Like some good pineapple liqueur. And psychic medium as yourself, Priscilla Keresey. It's going to take place on Friday. This Friday. It will be Friday, August the 19th, 7 to 9 p.m. And then Saturday, August the 20th, from 9:30 to 5:30 p.m., 9:30 a to 5:30 p. at Unity Church of Santa Barbara. That's 227 East Arrellaga Street in Santa Barbara, California. We hope that you folks will put that on your calendar. I will actually be there with my wife on Friday, August 19th. East West Intuitives is going to present this very special, very important evening of spiritual communication, led by our very special guest here, nationally known and proven New York medium. This event is an opportunity to witness mediumship and receive messages from loved ones in the afterlife. And in order to demystify spirit communication and encourage guests to believe that that their own experiences with deceased loved ones are genuine. Priscilla, I have a couple of questions in regards to some loved ones. Now, I'm not asking you necessarily to tap in. I don't know what your process is in terms of preparation and all those things, so I'm not going to impose in that regard. But what I do know is that just last March of this year, 2022, I lost my eldest sister to cancer, and I honestly, though I had the tears and what have you at the memorial, and it was, as I've often said this over and over again, it was the greatest balance of laughter and tears in regards to memorializing my sister, Jeanette. I started hearing her. Shortly after I was given the news. And all she would basically be saying is, "Hi, Richard. Everything's okay. It's going to be all right. Everything's good." And not that I was afraid or anything. It's just, those were the words that I was hearing. And then there's a second person who passed away many years ago, probably almost 20, actually. He died in our home back in Phoenix when my wife and I lived there, of supposedly of an aneurysm. And yet at the same time, there was this suspicion that he didn't die, that he was involved in some criminal case and was going into the witness protection program. So you've got these interesting dynamics. So when you are tapping into the spirit world, and by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with Johannes Graeber. He wrote a book called The Communication with the Spirit World of God. He also wrote his own interpretation, if you will, of the New Testament. And one of my favorite passages, I quote this quite often, where it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you."
Yes.
His translation is, "Seek ye first communication with the spirit world." Do you think that that is more accurate And the only reason it doesn't say in the King Jimmy, seek ye first communication with the spirit world of God, because the powers that be at that time did not want people to go off onto the, on their own. They wanted to make sure that the church would be in control, in charge, et cetera, of all that they experience.
I think there's a lot of that in the Bible and in holy writings, sacred writings of any time. In that in particular, that's a very interesting interpretation. My interpretation is seek ye first the communion with your own spirit and consciousness, and all will be given to you. So now, is God the same as our own consciousness, the same as every single one of us where we are one? I think yes. So I maybe they're not words that I would choose, but I would certainly, I think I adhere to that. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about these kinds of situations where you have sufficient, you definitely have the evidence. In my case, there was one of the most beautiful pictures at the memorial. It was the last one they showed us. Now, my older sister was shocked when she saw it because she couldn't believe that they would show something like this. But it was a picture from a distance at the mortuary. And my sister, Jeanette, was laid out on the table or the what have you. And her husband was looking over her. And they were almost in complete silhouette. And that gave me closure. It said, yeah, she has definitely left the body. Mm. Whereas with my friend that I was sharing about before, who we both speculate, he's got to be in the witness protection program, because there were too many signs, too many it's almost like too many mistakes made that keep us wondering if maybe he's still alive and maybe he's watching over us, but he can't communicate with us. Because have you ever had an experience where someone says, I'm trying to get in touch with so-and-so who supposedly passed on, and you connect, but they're not in the spirit world, not from the standpoint of having left the body?
Yes. And the other way around as well, where people have lost touch with somebody and I'm aware that they're in the spirit world and, kind of break the news to them. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a distinct feeling when I'm talking about people in the living world and connecting with them. I'm using more of the psychic aspect. And with people who've passed away, that's where there's more mediumship. Mm. It's slightly different in the way that it feels.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious, and we like to define terms here on the program quite often. And there are terms that I prefer using only because they're less energetically charged, especially negatively, if you will. But many terms that are used are psychic, medium, intuitive. I'm sure there's some others that are not coming to mind at the moment. How do you define yourself? And what about some of those other terms that maybe you don't use because they don't really define who and what you are, or the gift that you have, if that's the right term, a gift?
Sure. I am both a psychic and a medium. So I do psychic work, which is tuning in to somebody who's still here in the living world, or about somebody who's still here in the living world. And that's using my sixth sense to connect with your sixth sense, if you're my client, for example. And because there's no time in the sixth sense or location, we can see how something might continue along a natural trajectory and how things might play out. That's called precognition or premonition, or how things began, and that's called retrocognition. That's the sort of psychic information. Mediumship comes to me the same way, but it comes from a source outside of a living person or a photograph I'm looking at of a living person or something like this. Words like intuitive, I made a conscious decision to not use that, only because for a marketing perspective, intuitive seems a little wishy-washy. Mm-hmm. Are you a healer? Do you do past life regressions? Do you do tarot cards? So I just call myself a psychic medium. I think intuitive, it's sort of catch-all, and I personally wanted to be more specific than that.
And I certainly understand that. And it's really important. words have power, as I've said many times on this program, and we choose the words that we use for different intents.
Mhm.
So I know that by choosing the words that you have to define yourself, it's clear for you, but it's also clear, hopefully, for the people who are either your clients or who are attending an event such as what's coming up on Friday, the 19th. Where are you located? What part of the country are you in?
I'm about 50 miles north of New York City.
So you're going to be flying all the way across the country to conduct this. I would hope that there are other events that you're going to be having along the way, as it were.
Well, yes, the night before I'm doing another quick event with a different friend of mine. We're doing mediumship in Mustangs. She gentles Mustangs. She does tarot cards with Mustangs. So that's going to be kind of fun. Friday night is the gallery. We call it a gallery, where the medium stands up in front of a large audience and brings to as many spirit connections as possible. And then on Saturday, I have, of course, our all-day workshop on death, dying, and shared death experiences and signs and symbols of those with my dear friend Michelle. Then I'm flying back to New York because the following weekend I'm going to Virginia and doing a whole round of similar things there. So I kind of go all over the country and do these things.
Just can't nail you down, can we? You're just on the move. We're talking here on the program today with Priscilla Keresey, and she is going to be here in Santa Barbara, on both the 19th and 20th of August. That's coming up, and we certainly hope that you make a point to be a part of the event on Friday, the 19th, 7 to 9 p.m. That's going to be at the Unity Church of Santa Barbara, 227 East Arrellaga Street. And that actually just happens to be just down the street, actually, technically speaking, up the street from the radio station where I happen to work. And you're also going to be there with Michelle LeCour. And what is her role in these events?
So I am conducting the Friday night event myself as the medium. So I'll be standing up there. We'll be in the sanctuary area. So I'll be up on the dais up there and bringing through evidence of spirit people to as many people as I can get through. And then Saturday, Michelle and I are conducting a workshop called Signs, Symbols, and Shared Death Experiences. Michelle is a emotional body coach. And most of what her work involves is healing re-stimulated wounds from the past so that we can improve our present relationships. But what she also has done a lot of work on, and what we're doing together, is in the area of shared death experience. And this is something that happened with her own mother 25 years ago, though these words, these SDE acronyms weren't really a lexicon yet. So she's her role, her desire, and her passion is to create a trust in the process of dying, so that we can experience communication with our loved ones, and they can with us during before dying, during the process of dying, and even after the process of dying. So she's really going to be focusing her wide range of experience and anecdotal evidence in the workshop to help people who are carers, or who even considering their own final hours. And I'll be teaching about mediumistic exercises. So even those who have long been in the spirit world, our students can trust their own process and experience communication from their loved ones.
We're talking with Priscilla Keresey, and we're talking about not only this event, but the work that she does that you can find out more about. The website where you would like people to go to, because a lot of folks have multiple websites, and I only have one. How about you? Where would you like us to send folks that we will also link to regarding these podcasts, so people can click on it while they're listening to or watching the podcast videocast?
I can be found at apracticalpsychic.com.
I like that. A practical psychic. Sounds like my divorce attorney. She says practical solutions are reasonable solutions for reasonable people. After my divorce proceedings, I think it was she may have had one more client, then she got out of the business, which is unfortunate because she was really good. She helped to keep me calm, which was very important. This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it's a wonderful opportunity to speak with Priscilla Keresey here on the program as we bring you new paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And we are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We have the podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and other locations. And we also, yeah, I know it's a mouthful. I run out of breath after a while, and COVID does not help. And we're also on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews, and we hope that you will do so, as well as go to our guest website. And with that, we also want to remind you that when you are tuning in at those 4 times, we are streaming live at richarddugan.com. So you'll be able to listen to them from the local station online, but also the podcasts are there and so forth. We also ask that you participate, and this is something we'll talk about here, Priscilla. Well, I ask folks to participate in what we call the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, where we ask people to go within and listen to that still small voice, spirit, if you will, the divine, whatever term you wish. For me, the term is my friend. And then we ask that if you can support the work we're doing and you'd like to financially help us out, we would greatly appreciate it. We have a PayPal account. It's for your security as well as ours. Priscilla, one of the things that I find interesting about this whole realm, first of all, is, and I don't think it's so much today as it was maybe a few decades ago, the lack of trust on the part of the general public. They think it's woo-woo. They think it's maybe even witchcraft, for that matter, or a fairy tale, or no, they're just making this stuff up. And I'm wondering, first of all, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been using this gift? And have you received that kind of pushback? Even to this day, here we are, the 21st century. Come on, open up your minds, kind of thing, and consider the possibilities.
Well, I've been a professional psychic medium for almost 25 years. And before that, I was always kind of dabbling and playing and all sorts of new age stuff, though I am not at all a new age person. This is why I call myself a practical psychic. My feeling is if it isn't tangible, practical help to you, I almost like, what good is it? I mean, I can have, and I've been to readings where people will tell me that my aura is this color or my vibe is that tune. I don't dismiss those things at all, but it's not useful for me in my day. So to that end, I also feel that what I'm using is not a gift, but a skill. And the more that a person uses any skill, I don't care what skill it is, the more fluent you become with it. I feel everybody has the same and equal access to the sixth sense, to communicating with spirit. And we do have to fight some of that, cultural stigma that it's either the devil's work or it's all made up. And there certainly have been plenty of charlatans in the field over the decades and centuries to kind of bear that out, to bear out that stereotype. But there actually are some ethics and some rules and some laws on the books, at least in New York, about what's called or so-called fortune telling. So people probably should stay away from those sidewalk psychics, unless it's purely for entertainment. But you're not going to go get financial insights from people like that, hopefully.
Well, I know that I've been to quite a number of psychic, medium, intuitives, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I came to understand that I wasn't going there to get information that I didn't already have. I was going there to confirm, and this was early on, the information that I needed some outside confirmation, you
Mm.
know? It's like, okay, I'm working on trusting that intuitive, that is still small voice, but I'm not quite there yet. And that's pretty much how I would
That,
utilize.
and
Oh,
that's how I view it as well. I am no longer amazed by the amount of clients whose response to whatever I might tune into for them psychically, yeah, that's what I thought, or I thought so too, or that was my feeling, or I was leaning this way. So you're exactly right. A lot of what I do as a psychic is validate what people sense anyway.
mm. how does one how does one judge the authenticity? I mean, what do you have? Do you have like a questionnaire on your website that people can take and ask these specific questions, and then you're going to know if they answer this way or that way, they're authentic? Or how does one do that?
Yeah, that's tough because there isn't any licensing or certification or any standard that a psychic medium has to meet. So I always recommend that people vet, have a conversation with the person first. If they're thinking about going to a medium or psychic, it's probably best to have a referral. Like if somebody you know and trust has gone to them, that's the most, well, there are no guarantees, but the most, certain way I feel that you're going to have the experience that you expect. But I won't allow people to make appointments with me for somebody else because I want to talk to them. I
Yeah.
want them to know, I want to know what their expectations are, and I want them to know what they can expect from me so that a person doesn't come in expecting me to, for example, give them the lottery numbers or tell them where they're, if this guy is the one,
Yeah.
and a lot of people can get a little bit too dependent on psychics, and it's also, I feel, you know truly unethical to take advantage of somebody who's indecisive and to having them keep coming back and helping them make decisions. I am not legally or ethically allowed to give advice. I don't feel like any psychic is. We can offer insight in a conditional sentence. If you do this, I see this happening. If you do that, I see that happening. But there's whole realms of areas where we shouldn't be anywhere near. You know.
Well, one of the things that I have found interesting too, that this has been shared with me, and that is that everything is in flux at all times. Everything's moving, everything's in motion. And so, what a psychic medium might tell you, not just today, but at 9 o'clock Friday morning,
All right.
as opposed to 10 o'clock Friday morning, could actually change. That's really what you're, and so, and we talk about choices and knowledge of those choices to help make people's dreams come true.
Mm.
That's why we have folks such as yourself who can choose maybe to contact you, connect with you, go to your website. Um, that's a truism, is it not? That because everything is in motion, both in the material as well as the spiritual world, that the choice that you make at 9 o'clock
That's
may
right.
not apply at 10 o'clock.
That's right. And that's why if somebody's asking me about how something in the future will play out, I always say, if things continue along the same trajectory, this is the outcome or the most likely outcome that I see. Now, I also tell people the whole reason people ought to be seeking psychic information, if they are, is to validate their own sense of things, or to have an understanding of how things would likely go, and therefore they can take action to accelerate that or take action to avoid that.
Hmm.
So I always tell people nothing is written in stone, but this is the most if you just carry on the way you have, this is most likely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be empowering. So people recognize I have a choice, all the way up to the last minute of said happening, I can redirect my energies or my consciousness and manifest a different degree of that.
And it is up to the individual seeking this guidance to make the final determination. You may give them, quote unquote, the information, but it's up to them. And a lot of times, people, I've even heard scenarios, I'm sure you've run into them, and this is where your ethics come in, who they almost have like what's the word? A recurring appointment over and over and over again. I mean, it's like I'm just going to keep going to the site because that's where I get my insight. That's how I make decisions and so forth and so on. It's like basically what you're doing is you are turning over your life and your free will. This is where the unethical and unscrupulous individuals come in, where you're turning your life over to somebody else. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what about your choices? What about your free will? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And of course,
that I had to send away because
yeah,
they would call me and say, should I wear these shoes to the party or the other one? And
it will get that specific.
Oh, right. Oh, sure.
Wow. That's, now I have a Vedic astrologer who has shared with me my chart and the colors that I ought to wear as often as possible. And the what he likes to refer to as the protective gems. They don't protect you from the events in your life. They might minimize what might be considered the malefic aspects of the sun, the moon, and the stars, as it were. And he's been pretty darn accurate with hundreds, if not thousands of people. A good friend of mine had been talking with him for over probably 25, 30 years or so.
Okay, wow.
And he tries to keep all the readings positive. What about you? Do you tell them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly? How do you deal with maybe some negative messages or some not so complimentary, let's put it that way, messages that are coming through for you?
Well,
or for them?
That's a very good question because my sitters are in usually a very vulnerable state, and I'm acutely aware of the power of suggestion. So even if there is something that I'm saying to them that I know they don't want to hear, and again, there's very specific language around that I have to be very careful. Let's, for example, let me say a woman comes to me and says, is my husband having an affair? I personally feel it would be illegal and unethical for me to say yes, if he is, for example, because she could go home and, create a whole brouhaha, and, I could be wrong. I'm not God. I could be, interpreting a different signal in there. So in an instance like that, I would ask, what is your sense? And if she said, yes, I feel like he is, then I read her sense. I feel like you're accurate, I might say to her, or I feel like you're not entirely accurate. It's only gone this far, or it's an emotional affair and not a physical one, for example. So there are times when I tell people that I don't see their relationship flourishing, again, if things continue along the same trajectory. And the reason I see that is because there's a communication breakdown in this area. So if you intend to work harder on it, these are points that you might benefit from exploring. So even if it's not something that the person wants to hear, I try to deliver it in a way that empowers them and reminds them the truth of the matter, which is that they have control over it. At least they have control over how they react to it, if nothing else. I never tell people, for example, that I see a terminal illness, or that I see death, or that I see miscarriage, or because I don't see it, I don't want to see it, and I would feel a terrible burden burdening somebody else with that information. And I'll give you an example. I had a woman come to me, and she was pregnant. She had one child, and she'd had a miscarriage, and this was her pregnancy after the miscarriage. And she asked me, will I have this baby? Now, I don't want to I wouldn't want to say no. So what came to me psychically was, I see you with 2 children. So, which ended up, even though she did, I found out after the fact, she did lose that, she did miscarry that fetus, but shortly after she was pregnant again and gave birth to a healthy child. So what I saw was 2 children. I was able to tell her that without having to tell her, because I didn't even see it, that this one won't stick. So I think the spirit people, I think the own way that I communicate with my psychic sense presents so-called or possibly interpreted negative information in a way that can be handled in a positive way.
And is your communication exclusively with the spirit world in terms of those who have passed over?
Yes, I do not. I mean, I believe in this, but I don't, as part of my process, communicate with angels or other entities or spirit guides. I'm aware of my own and my own community here, but it's not something that I feel qualified to share with a client.
Okay.
But I do bring, there are also animals who have come through, pets, horses, parakeets, cats, dogs, the whole gamut there.
And that was sort of my next question, having to do with our animal loved ones. I've had quite a number of them. Being 62, have had a number of pets, and it's going to happen. We tend to live a lot longer than our animal friends, our family members. I had a woman on the program who was basically, her focus was strictly on animals in the spirit world. Actually, in this world as well, even especially if they were transitioning, as I like to use the word transitioning because it doesn't have quite the baggage. However, Bernie Siegel, who we've had on this program a number of times, was sharing with us about the experience he had with the death of his wife and since. And so I made the comment to him, so when your wife transitioned, he says, transition, what are you talking about? She died. What's wrong with using the word die? So I, out of respect for Bernie, but let me ask you about that in terms of animals in particular and their passing. Talk to us a little bit about, are they just spirits that have chosen the animal kingdom to reincarnate in, or are there spirits who stay exclusively in the animal kingdom, reincarnating lifetime after lifetime?
The honest answer is I don't know. My experience is, and the way that the spirit people and the spirit animals have answered those kinds of questions is, we're different incarnations of love, and we are bound together by love. And so my tendency is to believe that dogs stay dogs and cats stay cats, for example. But I do feel, and I've seen it on a number of occasions in readings, that we are all in the same place. If there's location in heaven or in the afterlife, we're all, where there is love, we are together.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of those things where I remember having to let my beautiful white shepherd, Makushla, go. And we spent 14 months working with her to try to help her along in terms of she had lost the use of her hind legs. And so, there was diapers and there was pee pads and there was this and that and the other. I don't know how many thousands of dollars we might have spent over that 14 months. And finally, we made the decision. She's ready. She wants to go now. And this was communication that I had with this other person whose name I wish I remembered. And she basically said that after Makushla passed over, that she was very sad by the fact that she hadn't planned this, that she wished that this had not happened, and was just upset in that regard. We're talking here on the program with a lady a woman who's going to be here in the Santa Barbara area this weekend. It's Friday and Saturday, along with Michelle LaCour. Priscilla, pardon me, Keresey is our guest here on the program, psychic medium, among other things, communicating with. I still like what Johannes Graber says, the communicating with the spirit world of God, as it were. Tell me a little bit about your connection with and how you connected with Michelle LeCour, the coach and intuitive.
Well, actually, I was doing readings with a friend of hers from a long time ago who's out in my neck of the woods in the East Coast. And this client of mine connected me with Michelle. I did a reading for her, and we just knew right away that we were going to work together. It was something in, I think we did a Skype call so we could see each other's faces, and we just immediately felt like old friends. And so we quickly put aside the reader client relationship and just started to talk about things we could do together many years ago. And we've been helping each other to grow and bouncing ideas off each other since then. And this is actually our first in-person workshop together. We've done some Zoom things before. We've done some business together before, but we're both really excited to work together live and in person.
Now, is Michelle locally, as far as I'm concerned, here in Santa Barbara?
Yes, she lives in Santa Barbara. Yes.
Wow. Coast to coast, east west.
Yes, that's right.
And I would take it that hence the name East West Intuitives is presenting this. I like that.
Yes.
That's very good. Very good. What's that now?
That's our dynamic duo.
I like it. I like it. Folks, you're going to want to make it a point to participate in this event. By the way, the website that you mentioned, and there are several here that I have listed here, but we want to focus on your website, of course, which is, you said it was Practical Medium?
A.practicalpsychic.com.
A.practicalpsychic.com. We'll get that all absolutely correct as we talk more with Priscilla Keresey here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it's a real pleasure to have Priscilla Keresey here on the program, sharing with us with the work that she does. And the website you can go to is apracticalpsychic.com, which, as I've said before, we will be linked to it. By the way, the cost of this particular event, basically, there's a way for you to register. There's a website. I'm sure that they can register through your website. Is that correct?
That's right. They can contact me, or they can also go to Eventbrite. There are it's $40 person for Friday night's event, and $150 for our all-day class on Saturday. And we can be you can find me on my website, which is apracticalpsychic.com. Also, we can people can go directly to Eventbrite and purchase tickets there. And if you purchase for both, they receive $20 off. So if you want to register for the event on Friday night, people can go to proofofafterlife.eventbrite.com, proofofafterlife.eventbrite.com. And if they want to go to the workshop, they can go to afterlifeworkshop.eventbrite.com. But of course, anybody can sign up for both with me. I can directly connect you with either that ticket site or take payment myself. Michelle and I can do both of that.
Great. You're also an author. You are an author of 2 books on mediumship. It Will All Make Sense When You're Dead.
Yes, that's my first one.
Almost kind of like what my father used to say: eat, drink, and be merry in moderation, because nobody gets out of this world alive.
Right. Which is the name of my second book.
That's right. Nobody gets out of this world alive. Nobody gets out of this alive. One of the things that I've often was very aware of, especially within I'll call it the religious community. I worked for 15 years for a Christian radio station. And I don't know what the right word is, vitriol, the hatred, the caustic nature of these people only was softened when they passed, not because I was glad they passed. And I made this comment regarding one rather prominent national figure here in this country. When he passed, I said, well, at least now he knows the truth.
Yes.
Is that true, that when someone passes on, even if they have these ideas about the way life should be, when they enter the spirit world, are they hit with, you didn't know squat kind of thing?
I have had spirit people report exactly that to me. I had a spirit person really define it so beautifully. She had been a very, very critical mother in the living world, and I was reading her daughters, there, both of them were there, and she came in to say that she was finally aware of the discouragement and the damage and the detriment of their growing self-esteem when they were girls and young women, and what it was her great joy to do, not just what she felt like it was her duty to do as a spirit, but it was a joy for her to reach into those memories that her daughters had, where the feelings were hurt or pain was caused, flood those memories with love, so that even though the memories wouldn't disappear, the sting would be neutralized. So one day these young women would be able to talk or talk about or revisit memories of how difficult being raised by their mother had been. Wouldn't re-stimulate all of that pain. And she was really eloquent in this way, and saying, that she was going to continue with that work, with them and with everybody whose feelings she had hurt. And that's why forgiveness really is an organic process, and nothing can be forced. And the spirit people seem to tell us, in my experience anyway, that they can really see where they were wrong or what damage they might have created, and work with us to bring about forgiveness. And she said to those girls, if you don't feel you can forgive me yet, it's because I haven't finished my work here. So it was really beautiful and poignant.
Have you ever connected with any of the spirits of those individuals who have created great harm to humanity? And let's just keep it simple. How about, let's just say, in the last century, specifically between the 1930s and the 1950s? Have you ever connected with any of them who have basically, even though you and I would probably agree that everybody is here, they signed a contract, have certain experiences, that doesn't make it any easier on the personality of the loved ones left behind. Granted, I understand that. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but everybody chose a role. But at the same time, using your example of this mother, have any of these other entities of, as I said before, rather horrific individuals, learned a lesson and have gone about the business in the spirit world of trying to, I don't know, make recompense or get redemption, or seek forgiveness, or forgive? Or what about that particular process across the realm?
Well, I will tell you that the work that I do is bringing through people who my clients know.
Okay.
So, but I haven't had any genuine monsters like Pol Pot or Hitler or Stalin. And that's probably because I haven't had their people, their family here in front of me. But I have had some really terrible people who were abusive, who had murdered, who were just terrible, terrible people to others in the world. And all of them have agreed that, there is no barrier to heaven. We all are received in the afterlife. And there is a self-judgment, not so much a judgment from a big guy with a white beard on a throne that says you must now, suffer, but rather a full awareness of the impact of their deeds. And in my experience, in the smaller circles of families where there's been a horrible person by anyone's standards, they work diligently to repair the damage that they've done with full awareness of that damage.
Wow. So until they have an experience in this life that opens their eyes to what they've done, they definitely have their eyes opened, metaphorically speaking, when they cross over, when they die.
Yes, that is my experience and understanding. Yes.
Well, I suppose that's a good thing. And of course, then there's another aspect of it too, and that is the willingness on the part of those still here to forgive. And I know that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do because of maybe the horrific nature of how they were treated and abused and so on and so forth. Does the spirit's recognition, acknowledgement of what they've done when shared with the individual, does it usually lead to, okay, you did the best you could because you didn't know any better and you're trying to make things better and so on and so forth, so I forgive you, or anything in between that and not a chance, you can burn in hell for all it matters to me, et cetera, et cetera.
It's been the gamut. Yeah,
Yeah.
some people are not ready and don't want to hear it. And as the spirit mother had said, if you're still there, it's because I haven't repaired what I broke. And I'm going to work on that. I'm going to flood you with love from the spirit world until you can. And if a person doesn't get around to forgiveness before they go out to the spirit world, all of this stuff tied up in our ego disappears. It seems to be when we cross into the spirit world. So forgiveness would happen rather more spontaneously in the spirit world.
It's interesting, though, that we would carry with us those particular elements. I've often heard it said that those things we wouldn't. I mean, it's like we shed all of the personality stuff, and then of course that makes no sense. It's like, well, then what's the point of having these experiences of a spiritual being having a human experience? What's the point then? Then there's no meaning to our existence.
I agree and disagree. I mean, I feel like we often look for meaning and how it might impact us, and how I happen to believe in reincarnation, so how we might carry that forward to another incarnation. I feel that, and again, this is just my opinion, that we're all here to figure out love, and we're all here to figure out how to be ourselves without apology, without, just to create, to be our own creators. And when that aligns with love, self-love, love of community, and love of one another, that's when miracles happen. And so my sense is, a part of our personalities I don't know if the personality comes with us to the spirit world. I know that when spirit people come through and want to connect with a sitter, they are going to show aspects of their personality so that they can be recognized. I believe entirely that they're still intelligent beings, whether they are bound by personality quirks and these sorts of things still there, or they just reproduce them so that the people in the living world go, oh yeah, that was my mother. She was a critical, difficult person. Or that was my dad. He did make those silly jokes, or he was always, giving more to the outside than to the family. So I feel like they bring forward those aspects of the personality so that they can be identified. But I feel really like we are beautifully self-expressive in spirit, and when we come into the physical world, our purpose is to recognize one another, recognize that we are already everything that we desire to be. We are whole, we are abundant, we are healthy, everything's okay, and I think there is rising above some of those ego and personality things that is, I don't know if it would ever be possible while we have a mortal mind, but I think that's the endeavor.
Yeah. We're talking with Priscilla Keresey, and we're talking about the work that she does, the mediumship. She's a psychic medium, and we're talking about also a special event that we're going to want you to certainly consider participating in and being a part of Friday. That's coming up this Friday, which is going to be April the 19th, 7 to 9 p.m. There's also a special workshop, if you will, event on Saturday, the 20th from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. at Unity Church of Santa Barbara, 227. That's 227 East Arrellaga Street in Santa Barbara, California. And this is a special event. It's East West Intuitives, and will present an important evening of spirit communication led by nationally known and proven New York medium Priscilla Keresey. This event is an opportunity to witness a mediumship and receive messages from loved ones in the afterlife. And the cost is $40. Although, if you go to a particular website, I seem to recall reading here where you could actually, I guess, if you were to purchase I take that back. One event is $40. The other is $150. But you can at least, those participating in both events can get a $20 discount, if you will, $20 off. And there is a special code. I will give this to you so that you can have this, folks. It's Save 20. How tough is that? SAVET 20. Save 20. When you go to any one of the locations that Priscilla has mentioned. We certainly encourage folks to find out more about the work that you're doing, because it can actually help to facilitate a better understanding, if I'm not mistaken, Priscilla, of not only where our ancestors, because if they've left this world, they become ancestors, who they were and how they were and why they were the way they were. And if we have a better understanding of them, doesn't that help to give us a better understanding maybe of who we are and why we are the way we are?
I think so. I really do, and that ultimately gives us more patience with ourselves. I think, spirit people say over and over again, please stop judging yourselves and others. Just be who you are. You don't have to make anybody else happy. You don't have to compare yourself to anybody. Obviously, if you're a parent of an infant, yes, you have to make that person happy, but we're here to be ourselves, not to judge ourselves, especially not to judge ourselves and find ourselves wanting. And so when the spirit people come through consistently in the 25 years I've been doing this with these same messages, like, forgive yourselves, have compassion for yourselves and others. We're all doing the best we can. And it's such a healing message.
Well, I know that, and my parents are still here. They're still alive. My dad, 91. And matter of fact, will have celebrated his 91st birthday on the 13th of August. Oh. My mother will be 88 in September. Married 66 years, I believe it is, this year in June, this past June. And I remember after getting out of high school, and we were sitting around talking. I think maybe this was during this phase in my life where I was trying to figure out what am I going to do? Do I go to college? Do I go find a job and start making some money, which I know my parents would have appreciated sooner rather than later because I was still living at home. But my parents said something to me that was rather remarkable. And just very briefly, I was bullied a lot when I was in school. I wore those very thick Coke bottle bottom glasses. I was legally blind. I carried around large print books. You can only imagine how big the dictionary was. Yeah. This was long before they put everything on tape, but they did have some. And I was pushed around a whole lot. And my parents said to me, "We wish we could have protected you more." And of course, I appreciated the sentiment, but I'm not sure how that would have worked. How would they have done that? Followed me around in school, which in many cases usually makes things even worse. Right. But I've come to the understanding and realization with everybody, as you just stated, we're all doing the best we can with what we know, with what we've got, with what we've learned. And as we grow, hopefully we learn more We learn how to be more compassionate, more understanding, more appreciative of the roles that everyone else is playing in our lives.
Mm.
And I even went through, as I've shared before in this program, a series of 4 levels starting in 2017, January. The first step was very hard just to say out loud because I did not want to give this person credit. And yet I knew I had, if I was going to keep moving, I'd have to do it. And that was, thank you, teacher, for teaching me how not to behave.
Mm.
And then I moved on to, I forgive you, but I forgive me more. I forgive myself for allowing myself to be drawn into this quagmire. The third phase was, and again, coming from a very humble, loving heart, what is it that you are so afraid of that makes you speak and behave the way that you do?
Mm.
And then deeper into that heart, phase 4, which was shared with one of my guests. 3 simple words. I love you. You have every right to be here just like me.
Mm.
You have a role to play. You have a contract to fulfill. You know, whether I like or don't like what you're doing is irrelevant. And I'm going to move on with my life and I'm going to let you be. And I'm not going to allow you to have rent-free location in my head anymore.
It takes a lot of courage, though, because we often define ourselves in relationship. And, I spent a long time, I had a mom who was a little difficult, growing up. And, I spent a long time telling the same story about how I struggled with self-esteem because of the parenting I had. And I remember being like, I don't know, my late 20s. And I was at my therapist's office again. And I just thought, I am so sick of telling this story. I have got to, I cannot continue to define myself this way. And it was like in an instant, I gave up that story, which had gotten boring, frankly, and just decided it wasn't as beautiful a process as you just shared with me. But I mean, I just got sick of it. Like, I got to start writing a new tale for myself and moving on with my life.
Well, the story I just shared with you usually will take 5 minutes to tell.
Mm.
I've left out a lot of details because of that very reason. The story is boring.
Yeah.
The process is important, needs to be shared, but it doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
It really doesn't. What matters is what we do for ourselves, right? I mean, if we don't take care of us, what good are we to others,
Right.
let alone ourselves?
One of my favorite phrases attributed to St. Francis is, teach the word of God everywhere you go, and only when necessary use words. And it seems to me such a beautiful way to be the change you wish to see in the world, for example, and to conduct oneself to ourselves and in relationship with others.
Well, I can tell you that I'm really looking forward to both you and my wife and I meeting in person on Friday the 19th.
Me too.
And I would take it Michelle will be there on Friday regardless.
She will, indeed.
And we encourage people to find out more about this very special event. Very simple to do. I'm telling you about it here on Tell Me Your Story. We're talking about an extraordinary evening of spirit messages with psychic medium Priscilla Keresey, signs, symbols, and SDEs, which is not a current, although I'm starting to hear it more. I actually heard it with another guest on another program. I wasn't the host, talking about shared death experiences. Also, an all-day workshop with emotional body coach Michelle LaCour, as well as with psychic medium Priscilla Keresey. And you can, it takes place Friday, the 19th of August. That's coming up this Friday, the 19th of August, 7 to 9 p.m. at Unity Church. The 20th of August, Saturday, 9:30 to 5:30, 9:30 a to 5:30 p at Unity Church. And that is Unity Church of Santa Barbara, 227 Arrellaga Street in Santa Barbara, California. And this is presented. We're hoping that you folks will make it a point to attend. Again, do you think that something like this actually does give individuals maybe even if they're still upset and angry and not willing to forgive, yet at the same time, there's a part of them that it kind of gives them a little sense of peace and or understanding, even though they haven't been able to convert that into the more compassionate aspects.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
Because unless they, throw down their pad and paper and storm out, if they're still sitting there and listening, they know, at least they know, now I'm being heard. I'm not being argued with. I can say how you made me feel. And you, even though you're in spirit, you can acknowledge that you were wrong, because so many, all they needed to hear from somebody was, I was wrong and I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if they're not ready to forgive entirely, just getting those words is extraordinarily healing for many, many people.
Michelle Keresey. Keresey is my guest. This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dew, and your host. And Priscilla, I want to ask you, um, what do these events do for you?
Oh, they bring me so much joy. When I have the privilege of standing up in front of a big group of people and connecting with the spirit world, I feel like I'm buzzing. And they're, they might sound like they would be sad or mournful kind of events, but they're so much fun. They're so interactive. Spirit people come through with so much joy that you can just feel the hearts lift in the room.
Mm.
And what I get out of teaching people how to access their own natural mediumistic skills or own natural psychic skills, and I watch people make these connections, it just fills my heart with joy. I don't think there are enough psychics in the world. I don't think there are enough mediums in the world. We need to bring this kind of communication into our day-to-day mainstream experience. So the more I can encourage people to do this and believe in themselves, the happier I feel.
Do family members who've passed on tend to cluster together? And I use that word because of my understanding, and maybe yours as well, of Dr. Newton and his LBL work, Life Between Lives work. I've read all three of his books
Yeah,
on
that's
the
great
case
stuff.
studies and so forth. Fascinating. I've even been through an LBL conscious hypnosis session.
Wow.
I got to tell you, there's a part of me that wishes I was still living back in that day. It wasn't a perfect life, granted, but it was really it just felt so right when I was there. It was so cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Um, you know, I had hoped I could get a session with him as well, but by the time the privilege of reading his books and getting into it, I think he had passed on. So I've never had that. I've never enjoyed an LBL session myself.
Well, it's something to experience, to say the very least. I was a pioneer. Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
And it focused mainly on the last days of my life, where I lost my farm. It burned to the ground. The field burned. I wasn't angry. I wasn't like somebody intentionally done it. And you know what? Doesn't matter. It's gone. Okay. So I had a cabin up in the mountains. So I went up there. It was a snowy day, and I came out of the cabin. And every time I tell this story, I always the twine comes to my voice. And I sat down in the chair, tilted my head back, leaned back, put my foot up on the rail, and said, "It's been a good life. It's been a good life."
Mm.
And I left. I just left,
Yeah,
as if I had known how to do that all along.
that's fascinating. Wow.
Do people that you are able to connect with ever share not just maybe their fear of death and dying and what's on the other side, but of the process itself? That maybe they've shared how challenging it was and found out just how easy it actually is, or maybe it wasn't so easy. I don't know.
That's an interesting point. Whether somebody has passed away by their own hand over a long illness or accidentally, they never saw it coming. Um, Everyone at that moment of kind of closing their eyes in the physical world and opening them in the spirit world has remarked on the seamlessness of it. I had one lady in spirit say that she didn't want to be talked about as though she had lost a battle with cancer, because she said, you know, we all were looking at this like a fight, and that I was going to lose something. And she says, when I was dying and my people around, my family around me were preparing, it was as though I was speeding up towards this wall, and I would hit this wall and everything would be different. And she said, what actually happened when I passed away was I went right up to that wall and I went right through it. And in an instant, I knew I'm still me. And I triumphed over death, because death wasn't what I thought it was or what my family thought it was. And again, no matter how a person has gone out, or how old they are when they go out to the spirit, they've all described a seamless, easy experience, even if it appeared to be very distressing to those left.
Mm. An extraordinary experience, to say the least, I'm sure. I don't know that I've ever had loved ones contacted through a medium or a psychic. What is your process? How do you prepare, or is it instantaneous? In other words, if we had agreed to do this, and if you were prepared, could I say, could you tell me about so and so who I know died and what they're going through? Because the process of death has always intrigued me. I've always wondered, what are they experiencing? What are they going through now? What are they doing? You know, well, the LBL with Dr. Newton has helped me to understand that a little bit. But still, I'm just curious. I mean, what did my sister? What was her first experience on leaving the body, and so on and so forth?
So my response to that, of course, is only from my own experience with the spirit people, and every one of them has spoken about being met by somebody, and very often it's been a beloved dog, a family dog, who is the first beloved spirit that they meet, and they immediately, oh, I'm okay, and I know exactly where to go now. I feel at home. Spirit people who have talked about passing over a period of time have talked about kind of like doing the hokey pokey with the spirit world. I go in a little bit, see where I'm going, come back. And it's sometimes in and out of lucidity, and starting to talk about people that they see who've passed away. And every one of them has made it clear that the process, which they're more than willing to talk about, really seems quite similar, one to the other. But I haven't had any real consistent explanation about what it's like where they are, or what they're doing if they're doing something. Usually I get, you wouldn't understand, or there aren't words for it like this. So they always give me a feeling of peace and joy, and still will often not only give evidence about who they were when they were in the physical world, but evidence that they're still connected with their families and loved ones, because they'll often talk about, I see you doing this. You've just now finally got that copy of the death certificate, or you're having a hard time deciding whether or not to sell my home. It's okay. You know, so they like to give evidence that they're still part of the family.
Don't worry about it. We have that happen many times on this program, where we have a member of the animal kingdom walking across the screen or sharing the interview, and we love it. We absolutely love it. We're talking with Priscilla Keresey, and this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you all for staying with us along with Priscilla Keresey. I want to ask you three final questions that I ask all of my guests before we wrap up. But first, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk with you and find out more about this event, which we'll tell people about here shortly, but also for sharing with us during this time about your experiences and what others can experience that might help to release them from a lot of the stuff that's holding them back from maybe pursuing their life's purpose. So I thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you so much for having me here. It really is a privilege. I so appreciate talking with you and talking about spirit and mediumship and psychic abilities, because we're pushing and shoving it into the mainstream little by little.
Well, let me just say, folks, that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m. We are also on at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, and we're streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. We also have podcasts at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We have a YouTube channel where you can listen to and watch these interviews. And of course, we will be linked to a practicalpsychic.com, practicalpsychic.com, so that you can find out more, not only about this event coming up on Friday and Saturday, the 19th to 20th of August at Unity Church of Santa Barbara. We certainly hope that you folks will go to her website and find out more. We also ask you to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, as we ask you to go within and listen to that still small voice. And also, if you can support us financially, we would greatly appreciate that. We have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. And with that, we ask our final three questions of our guest, and we hope that you folks will certainly check out her website, but also the three questions that I ask all of my guests before we wrap up. I've been asking for, almost 15 years, and I've only changed one question, but they all tend to be of the same ilk. And the first of those three questions is, who is Priscilla Keresey?
I, like everyone else, am God's thought of himself.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you are doing now?
I want to inspire people to fearlessly be exactly who they are.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
To help people raise their self-esteem, to believe in themselves, to trust that they have a right to be here. They have a right to take up space. They don't have to earn love or health or abundance, that it's their birthright.
Well, Priscilla, I want to thank you so much for being with us here on the program, and I really do appreciate your time. And we hope that we can get you back on the program to talk further about all of this, whether you've got a special event or not. And we'll also get Michelle on here too to talk about the work that she does. And thank you again.
Thank you. And I look forward to meeting you and your wife on Friday.
And this has been Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal and Jeanette, I am listening.